Hello, your Tech Admin here, and today I'm going to be taking a look back at my first PC that I personally owned. This is the Dell Dimension 4600, and it originally shipped with an Intel Pentium 4 processor, 512 megs of RAM, and a DVD-ROM drive, as well as a CD rewritable drive. Now, if we come around to the side here, you can see the original service tag. You can actually look that up and see the original configuration of this machine if you punch that in the Dell Support website. And it did have Windows XP Home Edition on it. Now if I take the side cover off, I just kind of had it loosely sitting on there. We can see the inside here, and there is a graphics card here, and down below there is a network card and a Win modem. Now, the network card was added in later because the machine actually does have onboard network, but after a lightning storm one day, the onboard network stopped working, so the network card was added in. And I actually personally added another 2 gigs of RAM, so it actually has 2.5 gigs of RAM, and a second hard drive back here. So the original 80 gig hard drive, as well as I think a 30 gig hard drive. Here's the fan shroud here. You can see the copper heatsink that's sitting on top of that Pentium 4, still the original Pentium 4, and the original power supply as well. If we flip it around to the back here, we can see the ports. So we've got serial, parallel. This is the onboard video. It's been covered up. It was covered up from the factory. I'm not sure if it actually works or not. I never tried it. It may work, it may not. So we got PS2 mouse and keyboard, then we've got all the audio, USB ports, and there's the onboard network that doesn't function anymore. This is the graphics card that came from the factory. I don't remember exactly which card it is. It's an Nvidia card, that's all I really know. There's that network card and the Win modem. So what I'm actually going to do today is boot it up for the first time and reinstall Windows XP on it. I actually have a copy of Windows XP that I recently picked up that I'm going to use to put on there. Here is that copy of Windows XP. It's Windows XP Professional version 2002. I think that means it's Service Pack 1. I'm not entirely sure. And there's the disk there. So it is actually the academic version of Windows XP. So without further ado, let's get to installing Windows. So here's a look at this machine's configuration on Dell Support website, and we can actually see here that it shipped on September 1st, 2004. And if we look down at the components, we can see that the graphics card was actually a Nvidia GeForce FX 5200 and has 128 megs of onboard memory. So that's pretty cool. Now, just like I did, you can put this in the Dell Support website and look through all of this configuration and check it out. It has pretty much everything there is to know about this machine on there. Okay, so after installing tons of updates, actually it wasn't that bad, I've got Windows to its most updated state, and it's running actually pretty well. What I did was actually installed from a different disk than the one I showed earlier. I actually used this disk here because it started off at Service Pack 3. The first disk I had didn't even start off at Service Pack 1. It was just Windows XP as it shipped originally. So it was way too much work to update that one. So instead I installed with that SP3 disk and installed the unofficial Service Pack 4 on top of it, which also enabled the Windows XP POS 2009 ready software updates. So I'll still get security updates on this machine until 2019, which is nice. And Aside from that, I also went ahead and installed Komodo antivirus. It seemed like the best solution given this computer's resources. It's actually pretty light on resources as far as I can tell, and it seems to be a decent, if not better, replacement for Microsoft Security Essentials, which as far as I can tell isn't supported anymore. If you install it on Windows XP, it doesn't seem to want to update, at least the versions that I found. There may be a version that still updates. If you can find it, that'd be cool. Post me a link to it. I'd love to download that instead of Komodo, because I'm not super familiar with Komodo. But that being said, it does seem to run decently well. I ran into a little snafu actually after I got installing Windows. My network card in this machine died. So that's the second network card this machine has killed. Or actually, the first one wasn't the card, it was the onboard network adapter, but it died as well. And I was originally going to actually install this little rose wheel card here. But I quickly found out that I didn't have the full-size mounting bracket for it. I only had the low-profile bracket. So what I actually did was, I didn't install, I just dug up my little Edimax USB wireless network adapter and popped that in and found the Windows XP driver. So as you can see, I'm actually on Wi-Fi right now, which it works fine just for these tests. I'm going to have to find another network card to put in this machine eventually. One that'll actually fit. As for performance, sitting idle, we're only using about 1% or so of the CPU, basically 0. It'll hop up to 1 every now and again, but then back down to 0. So that CPU usage is pretty good. And as far as memory usage goes, you can look there and see the numbers. It doesn't say in megabytes, so it looks like it's using about what, 60 megabytes or so, or 600 megabytes, I'm sorry. So 600 megabytes of RAM sitting idle, that's not bad at all. It runs decently well. I had no problems. You can see I installed quite a few applications. I got Chrome, Windows Stats, PuTTY, WinRAR, Notepad++, Audacity, VLC, and Spotify. None of these are really heavy applications, but I'd say they're definitely some of my more day-to-day applications that I'd use on my main machine, and it doesn't have any trouble running any of them. So as far as actually using this as a light web browsing and just goof off machine, it's I'd say it's still fairly capable all these years later. So here's a look at Device Manager as it sits now, and just give you a quick look at all of the hardware. I'll run down the list, and you can pause and look at this a little closer if you want. There's that wireless network adapter there. That's a pretty nifty little piece of hardware. So you can see some of the other stuff here, all the system devices and the USB controllers, and that's it. So here's disk management. You can actually see the top there is the original 80 gigabyte hard drive. Below that is the 30 gig drive that I installed, and then this bottom drive is actually just a flash drive I have in there. So if you look at the properties on this, you can see not a whole lot of disk space is being used, so it looks pretty good. Disk management says the disk is healthy, but I'm pretty sure there's probably some bad sectors on that drive considering its age. The disk below it is also healthy, but I definitely know that one has some bad sectors because I've scanned it before. It's a pretty old disk as well. The D drive here is actually completely empty. Haven't put anything on it yet. The CPU fan on this machine is quite loud even when it's sitting idle. It may be time to actually replace the thermal paste on this machine. That might quiet it down a bit. Also, this fan's quite old, so it could be in need of a replacement to quiet it down a bit. Here's another look at the inside of this machine. I just want to show that it actually does, down here, have SATA ports on the board, 2 of them. The only problem is, unfortunately, the power supply doesn't have any SATA power connectors, so if you want to make use of these ports, you'll either have to upgrade the power supply or find some of those little Molex's SATA adapters. Here's that little Edimax USB network adapter I was talking about. It's absolutely tiny. It blows my mind how small this thing is. And it actually does 802.11 A, B, G, and N. So it's a pretty capable little adapter. And it's something really nice to have in my toolkit, because whenever I run into a computer that I'm installing Windows on and it doesn't have network drivers, I can actually pop this sucker in, and I have the drivers handy on a flash drive, so I can install them and then let Windows Update install the drivers for that machine without having to actually try to hunt down the proper drivers for that machine's network adapter. So pretty handy little thing. All the capacitors in this machine are original, and none of them seem to be in bad shape, which is pretty amazing given the time period that this machine was built in. It was right at the height of the bad capacitor epidemic, I believe, around 2004 through 2006, right in that area. And even the bigger caps back near the CPU are still perfectly fine and don't show any signs of bulging or leaking. The only ones I can't see are the ones that are directly under this little flange on the bottom of this fan. Like I said earlier, originally I would have been able to take this fan out really easily and check those, but since I've hard mounted it, it's not as easy to get out, so I can't really see them. And you can tell they're all original, especially these solid state caps back here, because they have the original marker line drawn across them from the factory. So that's pretty much all I have to say about my Dimension 4600. All in all, it's still a decent little machine for web browsing, and I was pretty happy to dig it out again and play with it. It's definitely a piece of nostalgia for me. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a comment, like it, whatever you want to do, and until next time, guys.